Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this very interesting little knife right here. This is the Spyderco Jerry Brouwer. Maybe Brewer, I'm not sure. I'm not a Dutch speaker. But either way, first off, though, in the name of full disclosure, I want to thank Spyderco for sending this guy along. That's right, this was provided to me directly by Spyderco. They sent it to me as a review sample. In exchange for when I'm done with the review, I need to donate this guy to, well, I'm sorry, sell it to raise money for charity, which is actually win-win to me, because that way we help some people. It helps the channel. Life is good. But anyways, full disclosure, I'm doing my best not to let this affect my review, and we also have to assume this is the best quality controlled one ever. So anyways, thanks Spyderco for that. I'll let you know. Next thing, let's do a size comparison. This is actually not a big knife. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica, and you can see that although the Delica's got a little more sharpened length to it, the Brouwer and the Delica are in very, very similar situation, blade length-wise. Here it is against the Spyderco Dragonfly, also in British Racing Green at this point. And so you can see here again, the blade length, although this guy's got more, the Brouwer's got some more sharpened length to it, still, there's some similarities there. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 1 and the Rat number 2. And then here it is against maybe an oddball, but a compelling ball. Like, that's not even a thing. This little guy right here. This is the TRM Neutron. Very interesting knife right here. So anyways, let's go ahead. Oh, a couple of other quick notes to make here. To start with, the maker of this guy is a guy named Jerry Brouwer. Brewer. That's how it's spelled right there. And you can see, I've been putting this guy to work, so you can see a little bit of gunk on it. But nevertheless, the maker of this appears to be a very classy guy. No one I've ever talked to has anything but nice things to say about him. Seems really nice. And in fact, he even commented on my sneak preview video of this, saying something along the lines of, "Don't worry, if you disassemble this one, Nick, you don't need to send it to Siberia," which was always entertaining. So clearly he's watched the channel. So I'm trying not to let that poor taste in knife review channels be held against him here. But anyways, there's that. And then finally, a quick note. The clip that you're seeing on this knife here is not the factory clip. The factory clip is this little guy. But the problem is, well, we'll talk about the problem with the clip later on. But I have switched this with an MXG gear clip here. MXG gear, these folks right here. And I like the knife much better as a result, and so I've left that on there for the review. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, the ugly of this very interesting little knife. That's on the good side. I do like the size. Look, I hashtag bias. I like a smaller knife. That's a simple fact. But the thing is, this comes in at a very nice size. Blade length-wise, we are coming in here right around 3.75, 3.8 inches. I'm sorry, 2.75, 2.8 inches. And that's actually a nice size. It's going to be legal for a lot of folks, which is good. And frankly, overall in the pocket, it's a relatively small knife. There's not that much to it here. I mean, Delica-wise, it's coming in smaller than the Delica and right around the same thickness. So that's really nice. It carries pretty well with the other clip here. Next thing, the blade on this guy. This is an S30V steel blade. I still don't mind S30V. I think it's a fine steel. But nevertheless, it is also ground very thinly. You can see here it's good and thin behind the edge, which is nice. It has a nice spear pointy sort of blade, which I like. I like spear points a lot. There's a lot of joy there. It cuts beautifully, and the handle on it, especially when you choke up on the choil here, you really feel like you've got strong support of the blade. I mean, it's easy to cut dexterously with this guy, which I appreciate very much. So that's good. Next thing, you'll note that this guy actually has a lock bar insert. There is a steel insert that's been pushed into the titanium here, which allows this guy to lock up both securely and without any stick or anything like that. That's kind of nice. I don't recall seeing that very often from Spyderco, so it's good to see that coming up next. The next thing, this has some very, very nice construction. This is made at the Spyderco Taichung, Taiwan factory, and that is, generally speaking, a beautiful thing. Taiwan does very, very good work. It may be Spyderco's best work in terms of fit and finish coming out of there, and this is no exception. It's just beautifully done, and I have no objections whatsoever construction-wise to this guy. Next thing, the clip on this guy does mount ambidextrously, so you can carry this guy lefty or righty. Unfortunately, lefties are going to have a harder time because the lock bar is up over the spider hole, but you can kind of do it, I guess. So there's that. Next thing, this is a very smooth knife. It's running on phosphor bronze washers, and it's got that glassy sort of smooth, and I haven't even broken this in hardly. This probably got a lot more carry time than most things, just because, well, honestly, I was really conflicted. But at the same time, it's already very, very, very smooth, and that's really nice. Taichung does great work there. Next thing, and actually I think final thing on this guy, is that the fact that you've got this, the handle here is titanium on one side and then a G10 on the other side. But it's not just a black G10, it's a British racing green style thing. I don't know if that's officially the color or what, but the thing is it does add a little bit of intrigue to the process here. It makes it a little bit, more people friendly, because black tends to be a little scary, but it also makes it a little bit different than some of Spyderco's other black G10 sort of stuff. I mean, at some level, I do like the fact that if they were going to go G10 here at all, they went with a nice color on it rather than something that's just going to be more boring black or something like that. So to me at least, that's what's good here, is that the British Racing Green G10 adds a little bit of something to it. It is ambidextrously clip mountable. It is super smooth on phosphor bronze washes. It has great construction, a lock bar insert, a very nice blade that cuts just gorgeously, and a nice size to it overall. On the great side, to me, honestly, the thing that jumped out at me the very first day I handled one of these guys, I got a chance to handle this at Spyderco, actually, handled one of the protos. The thing that jumped out at me is just, this is a nice little tool. And it truly is. I mean, this is a knife that cuts very nicely. This is a knife that holds very nicely, a knife that with this clip carries very nicely. It's just a good, solid, honest tool. There's nothing too super fancy about it. There's nothing too like, oh my God, crazy, latest and great. No, it cuts well. It's a nice, small knife. And especially for somebody with larger hands who might struggle to hold on to something with the smaller, tiny knives like the Dragonfly or something like that, this is going to be great. So I think, to me, what's great about this guy is that it is just a good, honest tool. It's nothing too crazy fancy, but it works great. And so to me, that's what's great here, is that this is a very nice little tool. On the bad side, first off, this guy, as you saw when we did the measurement here, comes in just over 2.75 inches, depending on how you do the measurement and how much the cop likes you. Considering that there are cities in the U.S., or I don't think there are states, but there are certainly places in the U.S. where you need to be under 2.75 inches, that little extra 0.1 inch has done nothing but make this knife illegal. I really do wish that manufacturers would round down when you're near a legal line rather than going a little bit over there. Not a big deal, but it's a thing. Next thing, unfortunately, this guy is a little bit tricky to deploy. I have relatively small thumbs, but even for me, it's a little tricky to get down into this area and engage with the Spidey hole, because the Spidey hole is actually reasonably deep underneath the G10 there. So you kind of have to get in there and just catch with the very corner of your finger to get it out of there. As opposed to on knives where you've got a lot more, basically, region to get your thumb in, makes things a little bit easier, like on the Spyderco Shaman here. So that's a little bit tricky. I kind of wish that they had reduced the height of the G10 a little bit, given me a little more ramp than they did here. That's probably something you could do yourself, but still, I'm not a huge fan of that. Actually, the G10 itself is something that I'm not a big fan of. Is it a big deal? No, not particularly, but I do kind of wish that this knife had been done in all titanium. Now, look, I know that could have caused balance issues, because this knife is already reasonably far back balanced. I mean, they've done a pretty good job of it, but had this gone all TI, it might be even further. But this feels a little bit weird, honestly. It's sort of like, on one side, it's very much, this feels Sleesh Bowie-ish, Sabenza-ish. On the other side, it's not so much. And so it's a little schizophrenic. Maybe a carbon fiber on the other side, it would have left this feeling more like a high-end fancy folder, rather than what it is right now, where it just can't quite make up its mind. I don't know, that's very, very impressionistic, that's very, very subjective, but at some level, using the G10 here just feels like it results in a knife that doesn't quite get what it's doing. Whatever, not a big deal. Next thing, on the sharpening choil here, I'm sorry, not sharpening choil, this isn't a sharpening choil, this is a finger choil. It's not a sharpening choil because it goes all the way up to the edge of the blade here. But nevertheless, on the choil here, there is no jimping in there. Spyderco generally will do a little bit of jimping right inside here when you are making a choil in that way. Same thing here on the Shaman. For whatever reason, they did not do that here, and I'm not a big fan of that particularly. Just because, especially given that there's really not a strong, it could be easy to slide up onto this guy, and I don't quite get why it's missing there. Maybe it's cost, maybe it's something else, but it seems like something that was missing rather than something that doesn't belong there. Next thing, the blade to handle ratio on this guy is a little bit silly. I mean, seriously, you have, in terms of overall sharpened edge, being generous, you're at about 2.25 inches, and you're over 6 inches worth of handle there. This does mean that it's very easy to control what that edge is doing. I mean, there's a reason that a lot of really precision woodworking knives have that kind of characteristic of small blade, big handle. And this will be great for people with big hands, but it's not the most space-efficient knife ever. I mean, think about it this way. If we compare this to the Dragonfly, which doesn't really lack that much in the way of blade, I mean, sure, this has a little more blade, but the handle size on it is just, these are massively different in terms of size. And so, that's a thing you're going to want to keep in mind. If you're looking for space efficiency above all else, you're going to definitely want to avoid the Brouwer. Not a big deal, but it's getting to be a thing. One thing that is getting to be more annoying to me, and I would even go so far as to say, I was torn as to whether this was bad or ugly. But if you take a look at this guy, right in this corner here of the blade, you have this little corner. And that little corner is right up inside that spider hole. Yeah, you can see it right there. Little 90-degree angle. And unfortunately, as you're using this guy, as you're manipulating it, that little guy, as your finger is supposed to be turning fluidly within the spider hole, which is one of the biggest advantages of the spider hole, by the way, is that it allows your finger to just slide back and forth there. That little corner is definitely digging into you, and I really do wish that that corner had been rounded off a little bit more from the factory. If they'd put a little ramp on the side of that corner, as they were doing the grinding or whatever they was CNC in some part of this, I think that would have made this a little bit more compelling. It would have made it a smoother open. It would have made it, but that's just one of those little persistent pain points every time you open it. Is it going to kill you? Absolutely not, but it's something that I'd love to have seen them address. That would have been a little bit better. Next thing, if you're looking to flick this guy, you can do it, but I have tiny fingers and it's tricky. I'm having to get like this little tiny bit of, and it's not a super flicky knife anyway, so if that's what you're after, that's flat out not going to really happen here. The lock bar is all up over this guy, so keep that in mind. Then finally, on the bad side, this guy's a little bit pricey. It is a high-quality knife. It's beautifully built, and it's not so far out of line, but it's $175 plus $25 more for a clip you're going to like. Now, that's not, like I said, it's not completely out of line, but it's also not super competitive if we look at what else is out there, and so that price point is a little bit uninspiring. I'd be saying a very different thing about this knife at $150 or even $120, certainly, than I am right now at $175 plus 25 for the clip. To me at least, that's not great. And so all of that is the bad, is that it's a little pricey. It's got that sharp corner in the spider hole, which I really don't like. This is a knife that's not super space efficient in terms of sharpened blade length to handle size. There's no jimping on the choil, balance is a little far back. The G10 is a little bit in the way to open the guy. I'm not a big fan of the G10 anyways, and if they go, they're just over 2.75 inches, which is going to make this illegal in some places it didn't need to be. The ugly front, there was one ugly thing, and it was absolutely immediately apparent, frankly, even from viewing the press images, and that is the fact that the clip on this guy is super, super shallow. So the clip itself is fine. I want to make that very clear. This is a quality clip. It works very well, except the clip holes are put in a place that I really don't like. They are put all the way down here, and given that they've used this clip, that means that when you put this guy in your pocket, this much of the knife is hanging out of there. But more specifically, this just turned out to be a royal pain in the neck. If you're just dangling it in your pocket, sure, you can reach down, you can grab it relatively easily. And maybe that was a conscious design choice by the maker. Maybe Jerry Brouwer just hates deep carry and decided maybe not. But I suspect what actually went on is, you see here, there's a lanyard hole. And by using this lanyard hole, by positioning the lanyard hole here, they couldn't move the clip screws up to here, where they more likely belong. Such that, you would still, by the way, if the clip were even mounted up here, you would still have some of the knife to come out and grab. It would just fit a lot better in the pocket as you did so. But by putting the lanyard hole in here, they were forced to move the clip down, and this is something Spyderco has done a couple of times now. They did it on the Para 3, they've done it here. It's just, and each time it bugs me a little bit. Some knives just can't afford to have both a clip and a lanyard hole, and it's weird to me that Spyderco doesn't favor the thing in those situations that they invented. They invented the damn pocket clip, and yet here they are bending over for the freaking lanyard hole, and as a result making the knife require an aftermarket clip. It really, really does require the aftermarket clip, because not only ergonomically is this clip a little bit hot spotty, because look at where the freaking end of the clip is. It's right up here in your main grip area. It doesn't do that, and considering considering that they have the wire clip, which is just a beautiful thing. The Spyderco wire clip is magnificent, and it even is deep carry-ish. I mean, they could have done that up top here, and no one would have said a thing, but they didn't. And so as a result, this is a knife that basically needs a third-party clip to function. The first day I carried this guy, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to carry it with the factory clip and see whether whether I'm loving it, see whether, the factory clip's okay. And then I did for the day, and I got home, was like, okay, thank God I'm putting a clip on here. And I did, and I liked the knife a lot more. So as a result, basically, if you buy this knife, you're going to want to buy a third-party clip for it. Everybody I've talked to has said basically that same thing, and that just raises that price a little bit more. A $25 titanium clip on top of a $175 knife, that's a sizable increase there. So to me, though, that's ugly, is that the whole positioning for the clip just wasn't very good. The clip choice, even still, made it a little bit worse, not being a deep carry style clip. And this really, Spyderco's got to start doing deep carry clips one of these days. They've been trying to avoid it, and it's going to have to happen. So anyways, that to me is what's ugly, is that it basically requires an aftermarket clip in order to be a knife that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy carrying. So final conclusion on this guy. I'm going to be honest with you, this review was really hard for me. And I, kind of weirdly so. I carried this knife a lot more than I normally do for a review because I couldn't quite get my mind straight on it. I even at one point in time, I shot an email over to Tony over at Everyday Commentary, another reviewer I respect and trust. And I said, hey, Tony, did the freaking Brouwer, I'm having so much trouble. He said, yeah, this is a really hard knife for him too. And I think that's because there were a couple of different competing factors in play. And that's kind of where I eventually figured out I have to go. On the one hand, this is a great knife. I mean, that was my first impression when I picked it up at Spyderco. It was just like, oh, this is nice. And it is nice. It is a very beautifully made knife. It is a nice size. It is smooth. It has a blade that is just designed to cut and works beautifully. And particularly with a deep carry clip, this is a very solid little tool. If somebody said to me, Nick, the only knife you can carry for the rest of your life is the Spyderco Brouwer, I'd be a little, mad, like, hey, what are you doing, you freaking evil genie? Why you putting these? But then at the same time, I could live with that. I could do with this. This is not a bad knife in that way at all. And, I'd certainly take a Dremel to this. There would be tweaks, and certainly with the clip. But it's a really nice knife. It is a great design. It's well done. It does have some bugs, too. I mean, there is still a lot of handle for the amount of blade. For some people, that's going to be problematic. Having this little corner here, no, that's not doing it for me. That's pretty unfortunate. I hope they can work on that in the future. The clip situation is really just not great. I don't know what chain of events led to this thing happening, but I'm assuming that, the lanyard hole lobby sent a briefcase of cash to make that happen. Who freaking knows? But and you pretty much need this other clip to make it enjoyable, which raises the price of an already kind of pricey kind of folder. And these two things, the greatness and the bugs, that when you add those two things together, it combines it to make a very nice knife, but it's not an overwhelming win. It is a good knife, certainly in isolation. And if you wash up naked on a desert island and you find the new in-box Brouwer in a coconut, you're going to be pretty happy about this. I mean, days I had this in my pocket, once I had the clip on it, I was quite content to have it there. The knife is good, it's fine. But what I eventually realized is, and the reason it was so really tough for me, is not actually anything about this knife. Instead, it's the competition. Even if you just look in Spyderco's lineup, there are a lot of really strong competitors to this guy. There is the Little Native, which is a similar size range there. Also similar big old handle thing. There you get a compression lock. That's a nice choice. You're going to have the Techno or the Spyderco Techno 2, which is going to be coming up, which is a really, really nice piece and exudes that sense of high-end quality that I think this guy doesn't quite get to. You get the Chaparral, which is a really nice piece. Here, where's my Chaparral? Here you go. Get the Chaparral, which is a really nice piece. Is a little bit smaller in the pocket overall. It has the clip that's doing it right. I mean, there were a lot of similarities here, but there were also some meaningful differences there. Frankly, the biggest one for me from Spyderco is the Dragonfly. I mean, seriously, that was the question I kept asking myself, is would I rather carry the Brouwer or would I rather carry a Dragonfly? And I struggled because the Dragonfly is a smaller knife. Certainly in blade length as well, but also just overall in size. It has a better clip to it. The ergos on the Dragonfly are a little bit better. I mean, they're pretty solid on this guy once I put on this aftermarket clip. But the thing is, it's just a little bit nicer. And the thing is, the Dragonfly is cheaper in every version by a pretty substantial margin. Even if you go with the high-end fancy Packerwood Dragonfly, the Knife Center exclusive, you know what? It's still going to be cheaper. And honestly, this has a sense of high-end that this guy doesn't quite get to. Or if you're willing to go outside of Spyderco, another great thing to consider is actually the TRM Neutron, Three Rivers Manufacturing. This is a knife that's actually, again, around the same price as the Brouwer is, but it has a clip that works well out of the box, which is good. The blade length, although this guy has more sharpened blade and this guy's got more finger choil, are very, very similar. So legally speaking, they're in the same. In terms of overall pocket size, they're about the same size. The steel on this guy's a little bit nicer, a 20CV versus the S30V. And you know what? This is a little bit lighter. It's a little better balanced, and it's still cheaper. I mean, so that's the problem that I kept coming up against, is like, this is a very nice knife in isolation, but the competition is super fierce. And in many ways, this knife, this review is evidence of how good we have it in the knife community right now. Like I said, like I keep coming back to it, like I believe this is a good knife. Absolutely 100%. And if you want a bigger knife in terms of the hand with a smaller blade in terms of the law, you know what? This is a pretty solid choice. And with some Gen 2 tweaks, you know, knock this down a little bit, nix the lanyard hole, move the clip where it should have been. Absolutely, this would be an excellent knife. It could be in the running for gem status. But as it stands right now, given everything else out there, even though this knife is quite good, I'm just not sure it's going to be the best choice for you. Maybe it is, absolutely, but I don't know. And so that's how I'm eventually going to end this damn review that took me forever to figure out what I'm going to say. It's just like, I don't know. It's great, but so is everything else out there right now, and that, to me, doesn't add up to Brouwer. I think the Dragonfly wins, the Neutron wins, the Chaparral would win, all of those things, and this guy ends up being something, especially with the clip thing, that is just not quite going to cut it for me. So anyways, I'm going to cut it for, oh God, I didn't even mean that one. But anyways, I hope this has been interesting to you, that you found this video while you were browsing through YouTube, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.